Okay, everyone, welcome back in here to Inbound Sports Podcast. I am Brooks Talley here with my cousin, best friend, Devin Dowdy. Devo, how you doing today, brother?
Good, brother. How are you?
Pretty good, man.
Good deal. Yeah, no, been a busy week. I know we've both kind of been bouncing back and forth, texting, talking, but no, really looking forward to our interview again later today with Gabe on the podcast. I think Gabe Gundlach's a hell of a man. I think he's a very informed sports fan. He doesn't just sit back and kind of watch. He's very involved, very much knows what's going on with every team he's a supporter of, and I think he's a great first guest to kick it off here on Inbounds.
Absolutely. I'm super excited. For those who don't know, Gabe, he's really good friends with Dev and I. We've basically grown up around the guy, like Dev said, great person, great sports knowledge. He played college basketball, so he's got a little bit of insight on how that goes. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, so we'll get this third podcast kicked off. So what were your takeaways, Brooks, from this last week in the NFL?
Well, I got to start it out by apologizing to everyone that listened because I said the Browns were legit. I have to eat crow on that one. I am embarrassed of their performance. I really don't know what else to say besides I looked stupid. Which what happens when you're a Browns fan. I took that risk. I understand that risk. But on the flip side of that coin is the Steelers are legit. Their defense is so stout, so quick. That game against Cleveland, T.J. Watt and Bud Dupree got in the backfield faster than probably any defensive linebacker lineman I've ever seen. I mean, they're firing all cylinders. Minkah Fitzpatrick's just running around making plays in that secondary. So I got to give a ton of credit to the Steelers. I definitely wouldn't say that the Browns lost the game. The Steelers beat the living shit out of them. That's the reality. That's really what happened. So it'll be interesting to see if the Browns bounce back. But yeah, that Steelers team is super legit. Second part of that is the Bears. I'm really not sure what to take away from the Bears. I watched that Thursday night game with them against the Buccaneers, and Nick Foles looked terrible. Tom Brady looked terrible. There really wasn't any positive takeaway. It felt like both teams were getting their butts kicked. Nobody was winning. But I should rephrase that. There really was one thing I could take away, was that Bears defensive line is super dominant. Khalil Mack is back to his dominant form, in my opinion. So far in the season, he's got 4.5 sacks with 11 solo tackles. Roquan, I think it is. Yeah, Roquan Smith, their linebacker. I think he's third or fourth year in the league. I believe he's out of Georgia. He's got 37 solo tackles on the year already. I mean, that's crazy. Bears defense has 15 sacks this season compared to the league average of 11. Their defense is really what's keeping them alive right now. So I think we can attribute the Bears' success right now to their studly defense and how they've been performing.
Yeah. No, I got to agree with you on all points there. I'll apologize to our fans and listeners. I'm sorry you had to listen to a bunch of bullshit about the Packers and Browns last week because they got absolutely shit on. So I apologize there. My biggest takeaways were, Browns have a long ways to go, and I think they're learning still. I don't think they are a trashy team. I really didn't like Baker's comment this week saying 4-2. It feels like we're 0-6. It's like, come on, man. You've won 4 games. As a leader in that locker room, you need to step up and you need to assume and say, you know what? Yes, I haven't been good in our 2 losses, but we're moving forward. We're still learning with Stefanski. We're 6 games into this thing. We had no preseason. We had hardly a training camp. But yeah, like you said, on the flip side, Steelers are legit. That team, look, at least 3 sacks and an interception in their first 5 games. That is scary good. That team, like you said, T.J. Watt and Bud Dupree are arguably the best duo tandem on defense right now, with Minkah as the supportive third star on that defense. So that team's legit. And then the final thing is, look, if you didn't know by now, Derrick Henry is the best running back the NFL has to offer. His size and speed, it's unmatched. I mean, the dude, 264 yards last week. Obviously, being a fantasy owner and having him in 2 different leagues, that was my bread and butter, my savior. So, no, lots to like around the league right now. But, yeah, definitely watch out for those Steelers. Browns are learning. Packers are learning, too. So, I like where the NFL sits, though, right now. I think there's a lot of good teams that deserve the spotlight right now and teams that are learning to watch out for.
Absolutely. And, obviously, going back to Derrick Henry, you were playing me in fantasy, so screw you. He kind of kicked my ass. He really did. And, another team that people kind of are flying under the radar is the Houston Texans, how they've been struggling. Obviously, they fired Bill O'Brien, which I think was long overdue. Deshaun Watson, obviously, is fantastic caliber player, but they just can't piece together wins. They're getting really close. They got really close last week. They're still struggling, so that's a really interesting one.
Yeah, I thought they played the Titans perfect. I thought,
Yeah.
you know what, Mike Vrabel outcoached their new coach.
He did.
You know, obviously with what he did late in the game with that 12 men on the field call to kind of get the clock stopped. But no, see, the Titans won that, but the Houston Texans are right there, and obviously, you know, I am a Deshaun Watson guy. I like J.J. Watt, but I think, you know, the players' morale is what really was hurting, and I think getting rid of Bill, it's not really about wins and losses right now. It's about we just want to enjoy playing football again and not feel like we're robots. So, so we're going to flip into the second segment. So obviously, you know, I titled this one Trouble in Cleveland. Like we said, when we say trouble, they're learning. So in your opinion, Brooks, you know, does this start with Stefanski, or do you think these struggles, they actually need to sit down with Baker and say, you know, man, we need you to be the leader of this team. You know, we can see how important a quarterback is. So do you think Baker needs to shoulder some of this and say we need to step up as a unit?
Right. So everyone that knows me, I'm a huge Baker Mayfield fan, but unfortunately I got to say this. As of right now, yes it is. His biggest problem is these interceptions. He is constantly throwing. I mean, his interception to touchdown ratio is pretty bad. But it's positive compared to last year where it was even. You know, so he's got to really cut down on the interceptions. And you know, the games he has, that, what was it, a 4-game stretch where they were winning football games. You know, he didn't have turnovers. He was throwing the ball on time. I mean, his timing with OBJ and Jarvis looked really sharp. And then they play the Steelers, and they have that zone defense that's really tough. They kind of threw that wrench in there, and obviously he threw that stupid pick to Minka on like the second play of the game. He was just dialed in on Harrison Bryant, so that was a terrible throw. But the biggest thing to me, that why I say yes, is that mentality. Like he said with that comment about him saying, you know, 4-2 or whatever it is, has never felt like 0-6 or whatever. So yeah, that's bad. I really miss his swagger he had when he was a rookie. You know, he came onto that field and he knew he was the best player out there. And you know, I feel like he had some of that going into last year. But then he played the Titans, and I'll never forget watching that game. I just felt like I literally could see the exact moment the Browns' season was destroyed. Was when they were on their opposite end zone, and Cameron Wake came off the edge unblocked and just smashed Baker Mayfield into the ground, and they took a safety. It was like right at that moment you could see Cleveland's team's morale and Baker's confidence just shattered. He had no confidence in his own line. He had no confidence in himself because he was playing terrible. So yeah, as of right now, he really is the problem. And you know, unless he can kind of get it figured out, obviously there's a lot of season left. It might not work out with him in the future, as much as that pains me to say.
No, absolutely. I think it starts with Baker. I think he needs to step up and say, I'm a man. I'm the leader of this team. You know, when he's in control of what he does, you know, because that's where he needs to start, is don't worry about others. I think sometimes he gets so wrapped up in trying to help, and not in a bad way. I think it's an accidental, diminishing way of trying to lead people. But it's like, you know, Baker, when your timing's on and when you throw the ball well, I mean, that defense flourishes, the offense flourishes. There's timing, there's connection, there's flow, there's rhythm. And I think that's where it all needs to start is, you know, I tell people, I'm like, you know, everyone hates on Tom Brady, you know, when he's cussing and yelling at people on the sidelines, but I'm like, it's 6 rings. It speaks like he works on himself, but he's also like, we got to pick this shit up together. And it's not, you know, so when Baker coming out and saying that comment, I'm like, you know, and his girlfriend coming out on Twitter and saying, you know, Baker's not the issue, it's everyone else. And it's like, no, there needs to be shoulder responsibility and accountability here. You know, Baker, I've watched you throw the football from Oklahoma all the way into where you're at right now, and you're regressing, my man. Like,
he is.
You have really good moments, but you're making some stupid decisions that rookies make, and you're not a rookie anymore. So, you know, I think Cleveland's at that point right now where I'd say if Baker continues down the path he's going, they're going to fall.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're going to fall fast, and they got to get rid of him. So I really don't want that because, like you said, I love Baker's swagger. You know, when he would, as at Indian games and people are getting piped up and he's, you know, smashing beers and shotgunning them. And, you know, he can tell he means a lot to Cleveland, and that's a hard sports town to play for. But he needs to step up right now and be a leader. Yeah,
he does. It's a really tough situation. I mean, there's times where you see regression, there's times where you see progression. Like last week's game against the Steelers, the one touchdown pass he threw, he did a fantastic job. He stepped up in the pocket, he looked off the linebacker with his eyes, and he threw it back to the other side to Rashad Higgins, wide open at the opposite end of the end zone. So to me, that was a huge improvement. There's things you can take away. I think one big thing that no one really talks about that really hurts him is how short he is. and he has trouble seeing over his O-line. I mean, his O-line, I mean, those dudes average probably about 6'5", 300 pounds. You know, they're massive. I really think he has trouble seeing over him. That's why he falls so far back in the pocket so he can see the field better. And that's why he does so well when he runs out of the pocket. You know, I feel like that's kind of the thing no one ever talks about, which, you know, obviously there's nothing you can do at that point. Maybe put lifts in his shoes or something stupid like that. But yeah, it's really interesting situation. Obviously, like you said, we really want him to do well. Obviously, by some god crazy chance he ever listens to this, we're a huge fan. But you know, we really want you to do well and step up, and he needs to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he has shoes to fill, and if he ain't going to be able to do it, then you got to get rid of him.
Yeah.
Because that's again, that you know, you need a guy who's going to fill the shoes, and if you ain't man enough for the challenge, and you know, if you can't stay, if the kitchen's too hot, get out. You know, you gotta be a man, step in there and assume that role and say, you know what, yeah, I've sucked. It's okay. You're 4-2. Mm-hmm. You're not, you know, down in the dumps. You're right there for the division. You know, obviously, two very tough teams ahead of you to get past, but you know, they've just their two losses. They have just gotten absolutely manhandled every single position in every single way, and it's like that Steelers game. It was almost like you said, Bud Dupree and T.J. Watt. It was just a competition. They were just kids having fun. Like, I'll get a sack, you get a sack. Or, you know, and like you said, the speed. I think we've always talked about, you know, Bosa and Ingram out of the Chargers. These two kids blow it out of the water. I mean, and I call them kids. They're not kids, they're men. But they're young, and they're ready to get it after your head, and they're ready to just take you down. And I think they're right there for Defensive Player of the Year.
Absolutely, yeah, and they'd probably kick the shit out of us if they heard us call you kids. So, but yeah, so let's jump into this next one. Let's get away from the Browns, please, because it's painful to talk about. But let's move on to coaches in the hot seat. It's getting about that time of the year where you can start seeing coaches who may not have a job next year. So who you got in that category, Devo?
Yeah, you know, this is tough, but the first two guys that I'm going to talk about, I think they've really got to start turning it around. I think one guy more so than the other, but I got Matt Patricia and Adam Gase as my first two. Look, Matt Patricia is 11-25-1 in Detroit, and when he came in, it wasn't like that football team was atrocious. I mean, they kind of were decent, and then he had a good crew of talent, and I just really think they fell short. You know, my dad's a Lions fan; he can't even watch them. You know, his mentality is it don't matter how big of a lead we get, we're going to blow it somehow. So winning football games is just tough over there right now, and I think Detroit being such a hardcore fan base, you know, they're getting, I think, a little antsy and trying to figure this thing out. So I got to go with Matt Patricia, and then obviously Adam Gase. You know, 7-15 in New York. They just got rid of Le'Veon, and I think he's the issue. I think he's the problem with the culture right now. I think I feel bad for Sam Darnold. I think he was a great college talent, and I think if I was him, I'd want out. And it was funny because Roddy White came out this week and said, if I was Trevor Lawrence, I would stay for my final year at Clemson if I knew I was going to get drafted by the Jets, because they're so atrocious. They're the worst spot. They're wasting talent. They're trading it away. So I have to agree with him there. And my final guy might surprise some people, but I think Anthony Lynn in the Chargers. Really? I think he's in a spot. I think, you know, he's 27-26 overall with the Chargers, which is good. But I kind of look at him kind of like in a Dan Quinn spot. Obviously, they haven't been to a Super Bowl, but in his last 21 games, he's 6-15. So they're really struggling to win. Obviously, you know, they've had some health issues with Derwin James and Keenan Allen and their star players. But I think, you know, if he can kind of take Herbert and with no Austin Eckler now and win some football games and turn this thing around, I think he's fine. I think he of the three, he has the most leash right now. I don't see him going anywhere anytime soon unless they just fall off the face of the earth and can't win a football game. But those are my three. I think they're kind of in a hot seat. I think Patricia and Gase more so than Lynn, but I definitely think they got to pick it up.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree with all those. You know, Anthony Lynn one is, you made some great points about that, so I could definitely see that. So I'll take my perspective on it. Adam Gase, like you covered, the man needs to get the hell out of there. The dude's crazy. With Roddy White saying that, that's 100% on the coach. Like, if players don't want to go there, that's on the coach. That's on the ownership. That's on those guys. So the other ones I got is Doug Peterson over in Philadelphia. Like, I watched that game Thursday night when they played the Giants. The plays he was calling were flat out stupid. Like, it made no sense. Like, the reverses, the in-rounds, and the I mean, obviously, I know they're struggling with offensive line injuries and then obviously depth at the wide receiver position. But, like, it's just Carson Wentz struggling out there. You know, people will say they don't like Carson Wentz. They do like Carson Wentz. Regardless of what you think about him, the dude needs more talent out there than what he's got. I mean, Fulgham, rookie wide, I think he's a rookie, yeah. He's playing really well, but that's about it. I mean, they really have nobody, and Peterson's not putting things together for them to be successful. We've seen teams with much less, as little as the Eagles have, do better than what the Eagles are doing right now, so I think Doug Peterson needs to get out of there. And then my other one is Zach Taylor, the coach for the Cincinnati Bengals. You know, it's a tough situation. Their line is so bad. Joe Burrow's doing the best he can. I really like Joe Burrow. I think he's doing all he can. But how many times have we seen teams with the number one pick still struggle? Like, just plateau, basically. Like, they're still the exact same team they were last year. I mean, like, if we look back, we got Cardinals with Kyler Murray. They jumped big time. We got the Browns with Baker Mayfield. They jumped big time. I mean, if you look years in the past, the teams that always have the number one pick, they usually progress. And the Bengals really haven't. Like I said, they've plateaued. So I think you just really got to put the fault on Zach Taylor. At that point, that's just the only thing you can do, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, great picks there. You know, obviously with us being Montana boys, being able to see Carson Wentz pretty up and close, you know, playing the Grizzlies out there in Missoula in a great game. I love Carson Wentz. I love everything about the guy. But yeah, I think Doug Peterson is just killing him. And I think, you know, everyone that hates on him and says he's trying to be a hero, well, he's trying to be a hero because his coach is a dumbass and he doesn't know how to call plays. And I think it's, again, it's, you know, they're winning football games. And Carson Wentz is like Colin Cowherd. I like Colin a lot. I like to listen to what he has to say. And, you know, he said, you know, Carson Wentz is all guts. He is going to win at any cost. He'll put his body, everything at risk for it. And I think he said, just the play calling against the Giants, you know, such an egregious defense, like a team that you can just walk all over.
You should be able to.
And he just let them look dominant. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I know you don't have a lot to offer in terms of talent on the offensive side, but you got, I mean, essentially, you have an MVP quarterback. If he didn't tear his ACL, he was winning MVP that season. He was on another level. They ended up winning the Super Bowl with Nick Foles, and I think that was tough on Carson. But, yeah, I mean, I really like what you had to say there about Doug and obviously Zach Taylor. You know, nothing's changed in Cincinnati. Even with Joe Burrow going for 350 yards and 3 touchdowns, it's
60 pass attempts a game. It's
still
ridiculous.
Thing by 4 touchdowns. Like, this is just, you got to start to fix something. You got to start making moves. Or if I'm Zach, you know, I got to go to ownership and say we need to get more offensive line, defensive line, something to get this going because Joe Burrow needs help. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, we're gonna flip into this last one. I know we both, you know, really like Ryan Fitzpatrick, but obviously Miami comes out this week, says, hey, we're gonna be starting Tua, moving forward with him. And so are you loving that move, hating that move? How are we feeling about that?
You know, no disrespect for Tua. He was fantastic in college. I mean, he deserves the chance to play in the NFL with how he played in college, but there's literally no reason to start him. Fitzpatrick was leading a usually terrible Dolphins team to a winning record. And I mean, they were primed and ready to compete for a wild card spot or possibly even the division. So to me, I feel like it's just one of those things they really, what's the word? You put the cart in front of the horse, you know? They really wanted to put Tua out there. They didn't really think about it. And I don't know why they did it, to be honest. It really doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, I feel like by putting Tua out there, he can only regress. By keeping him on the sideline to learn and watch from Fitzpatrick, and Fitzpatrick even said he had no problem teaching Tua. He understood that it was his team in the future. But by putting Tua out there, you make him susceptible to injuries, to loss of confidence, to everything like that. I feel like there was so much more to gain by keeping him on the bench, especially when Fitzpatrick is playing good and the team's gelling. So I feel like they're going to put so much pressure on Tua now to continue that winning streak, and they could just really hurt his career, where if they would have kept Fitzpatrick in, they could have kept cruising, Tua could have kept learning. It was a great situation, I thought, but I guess they didn't feel the same.
Yeah, I was really torn because I love Ryan Fitzpatrick, and I think the guy's got heart and he's got guts. I think every place he's been, you know, I know people are kind of split on that and said, well, hasn't really done much. I'm like, well, again, he hasn't been a prolific talent, but every time you want to talk about like a Dennis Rodman type of guy of knowing your role, that man takes his role and he fills it. And I think, like you said, I didn't see enough out of Tua to really see the decision here. I think everyone knew with the draft pick, like, okay, Tagovailoa is our quarterback moving forward in the future. And Ryan Fitzpatrick knew that.
Yeah.
But, he had interviews this week where he was heartbroken. You could just hear it in his voice. He said, I was upset. He goes, this was the first time in my career besides Buffalo that I felt this was my team. And to hear, veterans on the offensive and defensive side of the ball, I think Kyle Van Noy, saying, I'd take a bullet for that guy. He's my quarterback. I love him. And they were up 24-0 on the Jets, and then I think they put in Tua for, a couple passes. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden it was like, he's starting. It's like, whoa, we didn't see enough out of this guy for you to make that decision this early.
Crazy.
Let him get healthy. Let him learn. They're rolling with Fitzpatrick. I mean, you just took the sails right out of all that momentum. So I love Brian Flores. I know in the first podcast you talked about him being such a great culture and a young coach. Mm-hmm. But I think this was an immature move. I think this was too early. I think he jumped the gun a little, but I obviously can understand that, you drafted Tua for this reason and you're giving him the reins. But I'm very interested to see, first game he's got Aaron Donald staring right across the line from him. And I think Aaron Donald's going to give him a shot. And I think he's going to get early, and I think Aaron's going to be like, welcome to the big leagues, big guy.
Yeah.
And Fitzpatrick's going to sit over there. And I think, I know it sounds bad, but I think if I was Ryan, I'd say piss on him. Let him learn the hard way. What do you want me to do? I had this team rolling. We were doing just fine. We struggled early, and then we bounced back with, I think, the biggest win of the season of any team, which was going out to San Francisco, coast to coast, and just ripping that team from head to toe. And he looks good. Mm-hmm. And it's like, and then you just rip that away from him and say, we're starting Tua. It's like, if I was Fitzpatrick, I would have been a little pissed. I would have been like, he did not show you guys enough for you to start him. There's no way that he deserves that right now. And I would have walked out, but tough situation is what it is. We're obviously not in that spot. Yeah. So tough for us to say much, but,
absolutely.
Yeah, that'll wrap it up for the NFL segment. So we'll flip it in. We'll be pretty brief in these other ones before we get into our interview with Gabe. Mm-hmm. So college football last week, obviously great game, Alabama versus Georgia. In your opinion, did Alabama go out and take that game, or do you think Georgia kind of lost it in the second half?
It's always kind of tough to say these things, especially when you have such a big lead and you lose it. But I really do believe Alabama won that game. I think that was a game Alabama showed that they're still the Crimson Tide, still that team you need to fear. We'll go into a little bit later. Mac Jones, their quarterback, he's playing exceptionally well. So I really do think Alabama just won that game. I mean, you can't take that away from them. Being able to come back in a big-time college football game, a big-time game in any sport, is insanely difficult. And the fact that they were able to do it with their backs against the wall just proves how gritty and tough of a team they are, and you need to be looking out for them, in the future.
Yeah, I think, obviously you playing through high school in football, and I was unfortunately not able to with golf, but, that was a game tale of two halves right there.
Yeah.
And I think that's, again, I was a great football game the first half. Georgia kind of had their way on offense against that Alabama defense, and they went into halftime, and Nick Saban made, just like he always does, he makes every single adjustment needed, and, they come out, outscore them 21-0 in the second half. Matt Jones, like you just said, 417 yards, 4 touchdowns. Najee Harris, 152 yards rushing with the touchdown, and then in the second half alone, they had 3 interceptions on defense. So Alabama just went out and they took that damn game from them. And it was not Georgia's fault. I think that quarterback's still young and learning. I think there's a lot of promise out of Kirby Smart's squad down there in Athens.
Yep.
But, Alabama just showed the veteran leadership. They just went out and took it, and obviously I thought it was a phenomenal football game to watch. But, all the props to Georgia. They played a hell of a football game. Alabama came out and they just showed their teeth and intimidation that second half and just stole it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. Like you said, I mean, Nick Saban's he's a tactician. He knew exactly what he needed to do to make his team come out and win that game. So that's why he's one of the greatest college football coaches of all time. So yeah, we'll flip over to the next part. We talked a little bit last week. I mentioned Sam Ehlinger for Heisman Watch, but have you updated your Heisman Watch at all since this week and the last one, Dev?
Yeah, obviously we talked about Matt Jones, and I really like what he has to offer, but I got to go Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence out of Clemson, 73% completion percentage, 1,554 yards passing, 15 touchdowns, 1 interception. They just dismantled Georgia Tech 73-7. This football team, again, is looking like the number one college football team in the nation. Trevor Lawrence is a phenomenal leader, one of the best prospect talents we've seen coming out of college in a while. So I got to go with Trevor Lawrence as my front runner. I think Matt Jones from Alabama is right there, but Lawrence is scary, and definitely, in my opinion, if he were to declare for the draft, he's the number 1 overall pick.
By far. Yeah, like you said, it's really hard not to go with Lawrence. Like I said, I mentioned last week about Sam Ehlinger. But, Texas's struggles will be the reason he won't win that. His numbers still look great. But yeah, like you said, Mac Jones. I'll dive into a couple of his numbers. He's a redshirt junior, a quarterback out of Alabama. He's got a 78.8 completion percentage out of 146 attempts. He's got 1,905 passing yards, 12 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and a QBR of 95.6. And that is almost identical to the numbers you said with Trevor Lawrence. So, I definitely think, especially with these two teams winning, those are going to be the two guys we're constantly talking about down the stretch. They're going to be like, oh, he's above him. Nope, he's above him this week, blah, 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 to see who holds up that Heisman Trophy at the end of the year.
Yeah, what's funny, with Matt Jones that I think is scary, too, is on College Game Day, they're already talking about, they're putting up Joe Burrow's stats because Joe Burrow last year had probably the best college football season of any quarterback to ever play.
He did, yeah.
And Matt Jones is passing him in every statistical category, and no one's talking about him. And so, yeah, I think, like you said, moving forward as the number 1 and 2 teams, Lawrence and Jones are going to be your front runners. They're much more than deserving of the Heisman. If it goes to either one of them, I would just tip my cap and say, job well done. You did exactly what you had to do, and exceeded that, in my opinion. So,
absolutely.
We're going to flip into the NBA here. First topic we're going to talk about is going to be my Clippers, obviously hiring Ty Lue earlier this week. What are your thoughts on that, Brooks? You love it? You hate it? What were you thinking?
Yes, I'm really excited to hear what you got to say about this, being that you're a Clippers fan. But I'll flat out say it. I hate it. I think they could have done better. I feel like Ty Lue really has not been that successful in his whole career. Only reason he won a championship with the Cavaliers is because he was LeBron's little bitch, to be honest. He did whatever LeBron said. Like, I was talking, I think it was our friend Ethan Moonhead. He's like, man, I love Ty Lue. I can't believe he got hired. And I'm like, I don't think he's that great of a head coach. He's like, what were you talking about? I'm like, well, do you think Frank Vogel's a great head coach? He's like, no, not really. I'm like, I think he's going to be the exact same as Frank Vogel. He's just going to kind of be that filler piece right there. But, yeah, I think without LeBron James and with, obviously, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard struggling to find kind of like their momentum, their chemistry, I don't think he'll be the type of guy that will be able to get them to kind of mesh together. I just think it was just an unnecessary hire just because he's like a popular name is the only reason they hired him.
Yeah, tough. I don't think we really made it a fair hiring process. I think, he was the first name to pop up in the conversation when Stock was gone, and obviously I had a feeling in my gut, I'm like, we're going to get him. So I think time will tell, but, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I like you said, I think in Cleveland, I think that's a tough situation with LeBron because I don't really think there's anyone coaches LeBron. I think the only coach LeBron's ever had is Eric Spoelstra. I think Eric really kind of put the foot down and was like, I'm the coach of this team. You're the player, you're obviously the best player on the planet, but I don't give a shit. I can run this team, and you listen to me. The thing about Ty Lue that I like for the Clippers is he's not afraid to speak his mind, and his first comments were, look, there's a lot of tough situations this year with injuries and, personalities that didn't need to be in control were in control. Obviously, a lot of people were kind of little frazzled by Kawhi and, he lives in San Diego and then obviously charts up to LA for the games and road trips. So I think he's going to be great, maybe not necessarily as like a head coach, but as just a governor of the personalities. Because like I said, Pat Bev, he's a douche, man. He is hard to take control of, and I think Tyler's going to step in there and say, hey, Trez, Pat Bev, Lou Will, you guys need to shut your mouth, and you need to play basketball. That's what you're paid to do. I'll take care of any issues. So I think internally he's going to really mellow those personalities out and say, play ball together. Let's come together as a team. That's how we're going to win this championship. But if you're talking about as a head coach and leading the team, yeah, he sucks.
Absolutely.
I mean, let's just flat out get after that. He's not the right man for the job, but I think we need somebody who can control that team. And like I said, you just hired a really damn good babysitter is what you did, because that's what our team needed. I mean, we were just a bunch of little immature fuckers that ran around and ran their mouths about each other in the locker room talk, and there was this and that, and I'm like, okay, we need to get something figured out because, not good.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, that's a tough one, but I think we should probably bring Gabe in here. We're kind of running out of time. Before I'd like to give him more time to talk here. So yeah, let's bring in Gabe Gundlach here. As I covered last week, Gabe's an avid sports fan, just like Dev and I. He's got a burning passion for Duke basketball and Celtics basketball. He's also a Vikings fan, unfortunately, to him. But yeah, Gabe, thanks for being on today. How you doing?
You bet, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on, Brooks. Really do appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We're really looking forward to this, and we got some great questions. Dev, how you doing?
Good. Yeah, no, thanks for coming on, Gabe. This will be a great week here. First guest ever, so really looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah, you guys bet. Thanks for having me on.
You betcha. So I'll kick off the first question here. So we're going to start off with Duke. In your opinion, what do you realistically see out of the Blue Devil squad this year? And what excites you the most out of Coach K and the team he's put together?
So I think coming in, we got a lot of talent, a lot of depth. We got returners, Matthew Hurt and Wendell Moore. They're going to be pretty big. They were good recruits last year and had some pretty good production. Them coming back and their experience is going to be big. And with the recruiting class we had the number 3 recruiting class in the nation. We had Jeremy Roach as a point guard. I think he's going to be huge. He can shoot the ball, score on all 3 levels. He can pass, and he's really good defensively. Jalen Johnson, I think he's going to be probably our best freshman coming in. Going to have the biggest impact. He was the number 13 recruit, and he can score in a variety of ways. Super athletic, 6'9", 220.
Oh, wow.
And I'm probably guessing that he's going to average the most points for us this year. So I think with the recruiting class and the returners, I think we're going to be probably top 2 in the ACC if I had to take a guess.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Duke's always one of those perennial powerhouses, so it'd be weird not to see him up there. But second question we got for you, Gabe. Do you think the main point guard for Duke will be Jordan Goldwire or Jeremy Roach as the season draws closer?
So with Jordan Goldwire last year, he struggled to score the ball. He was really inconsistent with his jump shot and three-point line. He averaged 24 minutes a game and only came out scoring 4.7 a game, and I just don't think that's enough production to be a starting point guard in the ACC, and especially when you're averaging that much time and only scoring 4.7 points a game. That really hurts the team. But he is really good defensively, Jordan Goldwire is, and you can't take that away from him. So I think if he improves his offense, he could get more playing time. But I think going forward, Jeremy Roach would definitely be our better option because he can shoot the ball. He gets stops on defense, and he provides full court D, just putting the pressure on the opposing team all the time. And I think he compares to Kyle Lowry in a lot of senses.
Really?
He's just hard-nosed, gritty, and
Right.
I just like the way he plays. I think he's going to be our point guard going forward.
Right. So as a guy that's played college basketball yourself, this is just kind of something I've always wondered. Is it harder to improve on defense or offense?
I'd say it's definitely harder to improve on defense.
Yeah.
Having that next level athletic ability is huge, and it's just not something that you can work on and really get better at, like being, I don't know, just physically gifted at that next level.
Absolutely, yeah. All right, Gabe. So as the biggest threats to Duke this year, holding up the national championship trophy, what do you think? Obviously, it's kind of tough when we didn't have season last year, so if you had to throw a shot in the dark, who'd you think?
I'd say probably the biggest threat is just the competition around the league. There's so many good teams. There's not really one or two teams that just sticks out from everybody else like that. One year when Kentucky won the national championship, and they had Anthony Davis on that team, just that monster recruiting class.
Yep.
They just stuck out from everybody else, and they were just different. And I think this year there's just a lot of good, solid teams, and not one or two teams sticks out. They got Duke at number 9 right now, I believe. And the teams ahead of them are Baylor at 1, Nova at 2, Zaga at 3, Virginia at 4, who's also in the ACC. They're going to be very tough.
Really?
Iowa, returning Luke Garza, that's going to be big for them. Wisconsin. Illinois was actually a shocker that I've seen in the top 10.
Really?
Illinois came in at 7, so I did not see that coming at all. And then Kansas at 8. So I just think the biggest threat is definitely the competition that is in league this year. So I think that's probably the biggest threat for Duke.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's really kind of a shocker that Duke's at 9, especially to kind of start. You know, I've never really seen him drop below 5. So, you know, but you can't deny the greatness of Coach K and what he's able to do at Duke. So obviously, a really good squad from what I was looking at that recruiting class. Jeremy Roach looks like a hell of a player. So you guys got a really bright season ahead of you. I think you've got a lot more time to prepare. So this should be a good season for him.
I think so too.
All right, we'll go into some Celtics now. Really liked what you had to say about Duke there. So obviously, a great run this season. There's nothing you can really say bad about what the Celtics were able to accomplish this year in the bubble. But for you, Gabe, what is holding them back now from getting over that hump and making it to the finals as the out of the Eastern Conference?
I'd say probably getting over the hump. The biggest issue there has just been health for us. We've been getting hurt. Kemba Walker was hurt going into the postseason. I really didn't think he looked the same in the playoffs. He had an injury, so he was not the same. You could tell watching him that he was struggling. And then the injury to Gordon Hayward in the first round against the Sixers was huge. He was averaging 17.5 coming in the regular season, and his production on offense was huge, and he was efficient. Just mid-range, doing what Gordon Hayward does. He was really good for us, and seeing him go down was a bad deal, with the injury he had before, snapping his leg, and he just can't catch a break with all the injuries that he's had.
Yeah, I feel bad for him.
And then, just poor Gordon. And then with the Heat, we beat them two out of 3 times in the regular season. So I really thought going into the series that we were going to win. I thought it would go 7, but the Heat ended up winning in 6. They're just a tough team, and I just think that the biggest issue for us is health. And if we were to stay healthy and keep that same chemistry going all year round without anyone really getting hurt, I think that we would get over the hump. So I think that's probably what we have to worry about the most, is just staying healthy for the most part.
Yeah, most definitely. And, I'll kind of throw this one in here at you, too, because there's been a lot of talk about Gordon Hayward not staying with the Celtics. Do you see him leaving, or do you think he's, a really key piece of that team going forward?
I really like Gordon Hayward a lot. I think he's huge for our team, but I think going forward with how much money is in his contract, I think it'd probably be best to go with one of our younger options and give more time and more shots to Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum going forward, because they're 2 great talents that are just going to keep getting better and better, and the more shots and stuff that they take, the more they're going to learn, and I just think their production is going to go way up. So I think going forward, we should really look at trade options with Gordon, because we have 3 first-round draft picks this year and Gordon Hayward, so I think we can really package together a good deal and get someone that could really help us out.
Oh, wow, yeah, those 3 first-round picks, are those coming from, is it still coming from, the Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce trade, some of those picks?
Yep, some of those are, and then we got Memphis' lottery pick at 14, and that was pretty big, them not making the playoffs, so
wow,
that helped us out quite a bit.
That is a big one. You don't really ever think about those kind of little things that still stick around like that. That's kind of crazy.
Yep,
Yeah,
I know.
that's crazy. But no, I agree, Gabe. I think Gordon's a great player, but he's also getting up there in age, and I think the injuries are also kind of a side effect of that and byproduct. And obviously, like you said, you have Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum kind of as your young core. It's really, really hard to sit there and actually say, we have to keep Gordon. I think Gordon's awesome. I think obviously as a Celtics fan, you're going to love him. But like you said, with all those draft picks, man, you can go out there and get a really, really good young talent and piece together a championship team.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we'll shift over to this next one, Gabe. Obviously, last year for the Celtics, Taco Falls was a big fan favorite. I think he's 7'3". The man's huge.
Yep, taco time.
Yeah, baby. So yeah, looking forward, you think he'll play over Enes Kanter, your guys' current center, or do you think Brad Stevens will start integrating it in some kind of way? 'Cause, with a guy that huge, you feel like he just got to play almost like Boban,
Right. Yeah, I think this last year I really liked Kanter playing over Taco Fall, just because Taco Fall is he's so slow on defense, and just you get him in the pick and roll with the point guard, you can't switch onto that because he's just going to get blown by every time, or he's going to sag off and point guard will just shoot a jumper right in his face. So I think defensively he really hurts you. But offensively, Taco averaged 3.3 a game, shooting 79% from the floor, and he had 2.1 rebounds. So I just really think at times he's really good to put in, like, say, in a fourth quarter situation, we can have him on the ball, and just having to pass over that is huge. Like in that Raptors series when Kyle Lowry threw that pass to Anunoby over Taco Fall to win the game, that was something you don't see every day.
No. The man's...
God, that game made me mad.
Yeah, I bet it did. Taco Falls is literally a fucking giant. Like, I hope there's
not... Cantor averaged 8.1 a game and shot 57%, so I think his production and the offensive rebounding ability was big, so I liked Cantor playing over Taco this past year for sure.
Yeah, and Cantor's been in the league a little bit longer. You know, obviously it helps kind of having that experience, that court awareness. And like you said, I think Taco is just, like, too raw almost, you know, like... He's huge, but he's slow. Like, you just put him in there as a big body. That's honestly all you can kind of do now. Obviously, he seems like a great guy. He's a fan favorite. It's really cool that the Celtics have him, and they do use him. So I really like that.
Yep.
Yeah. I think people also forget, you know, when you get that large, you know, and that tall, it's really hard to stay athletic, like Gabe said, and, you know, he's slow, and it's not necessarily Taco's fault. Just when you have extremities and limbs that are that long, it's really hard to fire everything at once and use all those muscles. So it'll be interesting. I think Brad Stevens will do something like Gabe said, situationally. But with Cantor's experience over that, then, you know, gives Taco time to develop. So, but no, definitely a piece you'd like to have. I mean, just to have him. So, you know, we'll go into this last question here for the Celtics. So, Gabe, for all of our listeners and viewers, why do you see Boston making a run this next season and getting into the finals and potentially winning it?
I think with our young core and Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, I just think they're going to continue to get better and better. I think Tatum averaged around 20, 24, 23, and Brown averaged 20. Kemba Walker averaged 20. We had three people that averaged over 20 points a game. And I think with that core, those three, and all the young talent that we have, I really think Marcus Smart, I really think we'll come out of the East as it's going to be exciting to see what happens with Antetokounmpo and the Bucks, I think. I don't know what's going to happen there. But I just think that we're young and we're going to continue to get better, and I think this next year we really have a chance to get over that hump like we talked about.
Yeah, the Celtics are scary, like you said. I mean, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are currently all-stars, possible future Hall of Famers. I mean, they have so much potential going forward. Obviously, you have Kemba. Kemba was a huge pickup. Like, you and I have talked before. You and I both can't stand Kyrie's bum ass, to be honest. Like, the man's super talented, but he's just a poison to the team. And I think having, like, a good glue guy like Kemba in there was huge. I really think they're, like, a piece to, like, a bench piece away to being a really, really solid team and one of those teams that you're thinking they're all. It's like how it used to be with, like, the Lakers and Celtics back then. You know those two are going to be the teams that meet in the finals.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. You know, people don't talk about Boston, and it troubles me a little because I think they're one of a very few lineups in the NBA that you look from 1 to 5 and you're like, damn, there are no goddamn holes in that lineup. Like, it is solid. I mean, and Marcus Smart doesn't get enough credit on the defensive side of the ball. I think he's a Defensive Player of the Year candidate every single time I watch him play. Plays his heart out. And, this Celtic team is scary. I think coming out of the East this next season, like you said, with Giannis, we don't know. You don't know what will happen with the Heat either. So I think this is an exciting year for Boston to rebound and get over that hump.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I definitely think so too. And like Brooks was saying, that glue guy in Kemba, I really think he was a better fit than Kyrie. And just on that team, a better teammate, better guy in the locker room all around. And he just helped us out a lot. And I hope he stays healthy this next year and we can get over that hump.
Absolutely, yeah. So, we'll kind of switch gears here. Covered earlier, unfortunately, you're a Vikings fan. Sorry, I had to bring that up. So, obviously there's been a lot of talk about Kirk Cousins and how much he sucks balls lately. And, so if you were in the position of owner for the Vikings, what in God's name are you going to do with Kirk Cousins going forward? With all that money invested in him, do you just kick him to the curb? Or are you come on, Kirk, you can do this?
Yeah. So, Kirk, we haven't signed through 2022. I don't see him being quarterback for the Vikings for that much longer, honestly. Mm-hmm. And I think if he continues to play this year, that's going to be good for us. The more games we lose, it's nice. Get a better draft pick. think that'll really be good for us and get a top 10 draft pick. So if he continues to play this bad, if we keep losing, I think I would consider that a win.
Yeah, it's starting to get towards that point of the season where your mentality is going to start shifting from winning to losing. You're like, all right, well, that lineman out of Oregon, I can't remember his name, he's looking pretty good right now. Or, Trevor Lawrence is looking pretty good right now. So it's kind of funny. I'm wondering if they're going to start shifting their mentality towards that and then just, seek or whatever happens. But,
I think Kirk's a great guy. I mean, I think I really like the guy. I think he's, everything I've watched about him and read about him, he's such a cool, calm, collected guy. But like I said, when I watch him play, I'm like, how in the hell did you get a job in the NFL? And almost making $30 million a year, $28 million a year salary. So, great guy, but just not an NFL quarterback level talent, in my opinion. I think he's just lacks that. And I think, like Brooke said, you're one win ahead of the Jets for the number one draft pick. So I would say let's tank it, go get Lawrence out of Clemson, got Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson was, in my opinion, probably one of the best rookie draft picks of all the teams. I mean, he is a stud. Even with a quarterback like Kirk, he's still right there for Rookie of the Year. So I think if you get rid of Kirk and all the talent around you is healthy, that team's scary out of the North for sure.
Yeah, I think just with the money that we're paying him, it's not worth it at all. Well, we got Jefferson who's producing, and I think if he had a better quarterback, he'd have more production. But, yeah, I think going forward, I don't think Kirk will be with the Vikings that much longer.
Do you see the Vikings making really any moves at the trade deadline, whether that be shipping someone out or bringing someone in?
Well, we just traded away our defensive end, Yannick. We traded him to the Ravens.
Yeah, you
Pretty
did.
much got what we paid for him. So I think going forward at the trade deadline, we might have to search options, see if anyone might want Kirk Cousins, maybe get some potential draft picks for him. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's
just a mess going forward, honestly.
I do feel bad for you Vikings fans because, I mean, you're honestly, like, your defense usually is pretty solid. They're really beat up. And then, obviously, I mean, Kirk Cousins invested so much money in him. And last year, he had the greatest QBR out of all the quarterbacks. I mean, like, you can't really figure out what to take away from the guy. Like, there's a lot of negatives to take away, but there's also a lot of positives. It's such a weird situation.
Yeah, it's a tough situation. So we'll move on to this last question for you, Gabe. Obviously, Minnesota getting rid of Diggs this offseason, but in your opinion, if they had kept Diggs and obviously have Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, and then Stephon Diggs as the receiving core, with a decent quarterback, obviously, or Kirk Cousins playing at a level of what you pay him, how potent would that offense be in comparison to the one that they have right now?
Oh, man, that'd be a hell of a difference having Diggs as a deep threat. Oh, man. Yeah, I think with Diggs last year, he really produced really well, but I just think in the locker room, he's kind of toxic in the locker room, not really a team guy looking out for himself, kind of selfish. Mm-hmm. So I think getting rid of him was a good move, getting a first-round draft pick for him. So I think we definitely have the best wide receiver core in the league if we had Diggs with us.
Oh, yeah.
But now that he's gone with the Bills, Josh Allen, he's got a good quarterback. He's still producing all those numbers, and I just think he's a selfish guy in the locker room, just looking out for himself. So we'll see how that is going forward with him and Josh Allen in Buffalo. But with that offense that we have right now with Thielen and Jefferson, I don't think we have to worry about our wideouts at all.
Yeah.
And then we got a couple decent tight ends, and Irv Smith and Kyle Rudolph, who's been in the league for, 50 years now?
Forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that. Adam Thielen, to me, is such an interesting, because he played, almost Division III college football, and then it's like a JUCO, wasn't it? Then he got picked up by the University of Minnesota, and then he played for, obviously, the Vikings now. So, he's a Minnesota boy, to his core. But, it's a real possibility he could leave just because of so much toxicity that's happening right now with the Vikings in Minnesota. It's just crazy. So it would be really interesting to see if he gets shipped anywhere or if he demands a trade.
Right.
Yeah, Adam Thielen's story is probably one of the best in the NFL, especially for young kids who, you always get pushed. You got to go D1 and you got to do this and you got to do that route. And I think he's proven that wrong. But, yeah, I think that's just the importance of a culture. We've seen good guys like Le'Veon Bell get shipped out. We've seen, he's gone to a couple different teams now, and I really don't want to see Thielen leave because I think he's also a glue piece for Minnesota, kind of holds them together. But it's tough right now. I think Zimmer's got a lot on his plate, and obviously a hurt Dalvin Cook and a struggling Kirk Cousins is not a recipe for success on that offense, and that defense obviously is kind of banged up and injured. So it's definitely a tough spot right now for Minnesota fans.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there.
He's got to go through it, the poor guy. All right, well, that about wraps it up here for us. Gabe, thank you so much for being on, man. I can't tell you how much we really appreciate being our first guest here. Any last words?
I really do appreciate you guys having me on. It was good to talk about things with you. I really appreciate you guys having me, so thank you guys.
Yeah, absolutely, man, and hopefully maybe in the future we can have you on more. But yeah, absolutely. Gabe Gundlach, everybody. Thank you. All right, folks, that was Gabe Gundlach. Thank you so much again, Gabe, for getting on here. We greatly appreciate your time, getting all those facts for us. Your knowledge of basketball itself is greatly appreciated, so thank you for that, man. So, we'll end the show here. We'll jump into our last segments, the weekly things we like to do, the versus best bets and Devin's dogs. The things we like to do is cover sports bets, obviously. A lot of fun to talk about. So I'll dive into mine for Brooks' best bets, excuse me. My first one is I've got taking the spread of Denver Broncos at Kansas City Chiefs. Broncos, the spread of plus 9.5 at the odds at negative 118. And then my other one is Cleveland Browns at Cincinnati. I'm going to take the Browns with the spread at negative 3. I think they bounce back this week. Obviously, we've talked about how much Cincinnati's been struggling. So Browns with the spread of negative 3, odds at negative 120. So those are my best bets of the week.
Yeah, obviously, before I get into mine, I want to thank Gabe again. I thought he was very prepared. A great first guest for the show.
Awesome, man. We greatly
here.
appreciate it.
Gabe, thanks again, man. You brought a lot of value to our podcast. To all our listeners and viewers, if you ever have any questions, he is an awesome resource to reach out to. If you have any questions about basketball, especially with him being such a great player for the Miles City Cowboys, and then obviously into the college level as well. But so I got 4 teams this week as my dogs. Obviously, like I said, I don't really get into much else besides the spread, but Steelers are a plus 1.5 underdog against the Titans. I think they are the best defense, and their offense accompanies that control and that flow. So I think they get the job done against the Titans. My second one is the Raiders at home against the Buccaneers. I think the Bucs have a lot of momentum, but I think that Raiders team has a chance to really solidify a contender mentality. They're plus 4 underdogs at home under John Gruden against Bruce Arians. I think that veteran leadership, I think, carries them to a win. My next 2 are kind of stretches. I guess this third one's really a stretch. I love Russell Wilson, but Cardinals are a plus 3.5 favorite at home against the Seahawks. Obviously, Cardinals coming off a big win against the Dallas Cowboys. Kenyon Drake looking good. Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, that defense helps them out as well. So I think Russell Wilson, they're going to have a tough test this week. I think this is a big game for Arizona to say, are we here to stay, or we still got some work to do? So I still think Russell Wilson's the easier pick there. I think he's a safe pick in that game because they haven't lost to the Cardinals in a while. But in the past, the Cardinals have been a team that can give them some trouble. So like them there at plus 3.5. And then my final one is the Bears on the road at plus 6 against the Rams Monday night. Let's see what they're all about. If they're 5-1, they know how to win football games. That defense, like Brooks talked about earlier today, that defense is getting it done.
Right.
I think that offense for the Rams can get flustered real quick, and I think that if Nick Foles and the offense can at least get some sort of rhythm and flow early, I think that plus 6 is looking like a good bet. But those are my dogs of the week. I think they have a really good chance, and obviously, like I said, the Cardinals are a stretch, but it should be a good week.
You've been a lot more successful with yours than mine. I missed on both mine last week, so yeah. If anybody listening, Devin's are probably a little bit better. Can't lie. So yeah, that'll about do us for this week, folks. Thank you again so much for tuning in. I can't thank you enough how much your viewership, all the comments, people letting us know how they like it, things we can improve on. We greatly appreciate it. All of it, like the positives and the negatives. It means the world to us that people are actually enjoying this and listening to this. Next week, we're looking forward. We're going to have Tyler Burke on. He is a track athlete and a football athlete for the Dixon State Bluehawks. Dixon State Bluehawks, I believe, are 7-0 now. They're the only college football team in the entire United States that are undefeated currently. He's a good friend of Devin and I's. He's got great knowledge of sports overall. He's a Packers fan with Dev. So yeah, we're really looking forward to having Tyler on next week. But that'll about do us for this week, Dev. Anything you got left to say?
No, just another thank you again to everybody who's listening and giving us comments. A big thank you to Gabe again. But looking forward, Tyler, looking forward to having him on. Great friend of ours. Love the guy to death. Like you said, great athlete, great insight, great knowledge. So to all our viewers, this next podcast is going to come out a little earlier, just with I'll be leaving town. So we're going to have a little earlier podcast for you guys to enjoy. So you're going to probably have one coming out, and then in a couple of days we'll have the next one coming out with Tyler. So thanks again, and looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Thank you everyone for listening, and we will see you next week.